Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday, and off we go.
Off we go is right.
Another week in paradise.
Yep. You know, before we move on, because we really wanted to...
We're not moving on. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're never moving on.
We've been stagnating for decades here. Are you kidding me? We're not moving anywhere. We've been stuck in the mud for a long time here.
Yeah, it's the way of life. What do you want to address first? The non-responsive... the Office of Destruction, or we had to, we went back and forth on how we're going to address this. So.
Yeah, well, no, because look, we always have, and look, we apologize, and I know a lot of people have said they'd like us to be on for an hour, and they'd like us to be on every day, and some people don't want us on at all, but then that's a matter of opinion. But the fact is that at the end of Friday's show, we talked about, and we actually showed the city council meeting when the famous Form K became infamous, when one company was denied because they didn't have it filled out, and another company, it wasn't a fatal error because that company fit. And since then, there has been many developments on that front because the bid was withdrawn, and also we received, and so for the people who say nobody watch our show, because they do, watches our show, they do, and they even complain about certain things. So from now on, I won't say bovine excrement. I'm going to say equine, because I like the word equine. It's nice. I like horse. Horse excrement, okay? So if that still offends your sensitive little ears, well, tough. So, but we have some I think it's an extremely important story, CJ, because it shows something that's very, very important that the people of Fall River have to look at.
And we've been saying it for years.
That's right. It's the non-responsiveness of this city to small businesses and businesses who don't come in and line the politicians' pockets. The big businesses that get the tips. We had the business, part of that thing was about the betting company. They wanted, now here's a company that's been in Fall River for a very, very long time. They're located on Quarry Street. I drive by it all the time.
Since 1992.
Yeah, so they've been here for a very, very long time. And obviously they either lease or rent the property they're in. And here's a company that's been here since 1992, wants to buy a building. They want to become property owners. Taxpayers. What a commitment to the city of Fall River. And what should we do to a company like this that employs Fall River people, that's been in Fall River since 1992? We should roll out the red carpet. They should be falling all over this company saying, this is what we want to market. People staying in this community, investing in this community. And what do? They deny them the building. And then once we ran that on Friday, we get letters. We get letters from their attorney saying they reached out to the Office of Economic Destruction. And CJ, why don't you tell our viewers what the response of our Office of Economic Destruction was?
Well, I think it's going to be actually easier for me to show you. How about that?
Out to Mr. Fiola, I believe it is, and we did not have a response to the email that we sent him asking for help with not just this grant but many others. So,
and further,
the thing, and this since I got off on the wrong foot, let me try to make it up. In my trips to Fall River, I've become so impressed with this community. I'd never been here before. And Mr. Nguyen has been so enthusiastic that I have recently recommended to two companies, one out of North Carolina and one out of Tennessee, that are looking for manufacturing space, that they take a look at Fall River. So our request to Mr. Fiola wasn't just for Mr. Nguyen, It was for the potential down the road, and the state is aware of these two companies and their potential to contribute. And so,
Kenny Fiola doesn't respond to businesses that want to locate here. Okay.
Unless they're bringing in a lot of money and they're not paying
That we're not going to
taxes,
get anything.
And we're not going to get anything out of it.
Right.
Okay.
And two other companies that this gentleman represents from out of state, he recommended that you look at Fall River. His problem is that the Fall River Office of Economic Destruction is, again, non-responsive. Hey, wake up over there, people. Do your job.
Can you run that, just the tail end, because before you do, I just want to, because at the end of that statement, after this guy made a statement that there were other companies he was trying to entice into Fall River to help our economy. These are the kind of jobs we've continued to talk about for years. Bringing in small businesses, investing in the community, paying taxes right out of the gate. This man is saying he was recommending to our Office of Economic Development. And what is the response at the end of that? I don't know whether it was a side conversation, but our corporate counsel was not paying attention.
No, as a matter of fact,
or he thought it was funny and he whispered something. I don't know if he was saying, are they on the special list? Or should I pay attention? I don't know what he was. I'm not a lip reader. But frankly, that's, to me, is an insult. We're talking about developing the Fall River economy, and people they think there's a side conversation or something going on, and it's funny.
And I mean, here's how funny it is. Look at that picture. Look at that face. Can you see that face? Yeah. From there, let's play this again.
The thing,
he's playing a lot. He's paying attention.
Since I got off on the wrong foot, let me try to make it up. In my trips to Fall River, I've become so impressed with this community. I'd never been here before. And Mr. Nguyen has been so enthusiastic that I have recently recommended to two companies, one out of North Carolina and one out of Tennessee, that are looking for manufacturing space, that they take a look at Fall River. So our request to Mr. Fiola wasn't just for Mr. Nguyen. It was for the potential down the road, and the state is aware of these two companies and their potential to contribute. And so...
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's like, I know what he was saying. He was saying that was equine excrement because nobody can be impressed with Fall River. And he thought, and it was funny. Turns away. I mean, this is appalling. They continue to complain that we can't get jobs, we can't get people to move into Fall River, and the people we get don't pay taxes, don't employ Fall River people. And here's a guy saying he's trying to entice other companies in addition in here. And it's like, if anything, they should have given this guy, they should have had a special meeting just for this guy and bring these people in. Where were the questions about how do we contact this company from North Carolina? Where were the questions about are we going to follow up? No, it's like, hey, the hell with these people. They're not on the list. They're not from Providence. They don't give to our campaign. They're just people that want to come here, invest in the city, and maybe get us some jobs. So who cares? Not us, because we don't pay the bills.
Because my pockets aren't being lined.
So I think that was important, and I think that's extremely, extremely important that, people, you've got to really focus, because, I know the city council meetings, sometimes they're so difficult you want to stick pins in your eyes when you look at it. I understand that. And I commend people who can watch it all at once. I have to watch it on my DVR in small bites because they have to run and get the Pepto-Bismol every once in a while. It's difficult. And I understand that.
Well, it's all that equine excrement.
Yeah, you're right. But you have to focus and you have to pay attention to what's going on. When things like this come up before a council and are discussed, where's the outrage of the real estate committee? Where's the outrage of the rest of the city councilors about this? Nobody picked up that, Kenny Fiola didn't even respond to people making overtures to bring businesses and jobs to the city of Fall River. I thought that's what he got paid to do. Well, maybe not. Maybe he just gets paid to bring in the big money things who get everything for free.
And give away our tax dollars.
And give away our tax dollars.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think, that's why I really felt, we did get emails on it about that we should have covered it longer. And I made a promise to one of our most loyal viewers, if not our most loyal viewer, that we would lead with this story. And I think we've given it sufficient. You've seen it on tape now 2 or 3 times. You heard the words. There were other companies that were potentially looking at Fall River, and not only were they ignored by the Office of Economic Destruction, they are ignored by the Fall River City Council's Real Estate Committee, the Fall River Corporation Council, and basically everybody in that chamber. So tell me you really care.
And the city administration was adequately represented. Cathy Ann was sitting right there.
Yeah, well,
so now we know the mayor's office is interested.
Now you know the reason they were ignored, because Cathy Ann's normally in a coma.
Well, I had to put right at the top of your papers there. Yep. A Superior Court judge in Hartford dropped a bombshell on Connecticut's entire education system Wednesday, saying the state is failing in its constitutional duty to rationally and fairly fund public education. The lengthy ruling in the 11-year-long case was read in its entirety from the bench in a highly unusual move by Judge Thomas Muskauser. Muscauser's ruling gives the state 180 days to come up with a plan for an almost complete overhaul of educational standards in Connecticut. In 6 months, the state must submit proposed changes to the court on the relationship between the state and local government and education, the educational aid formula, a definition of elementary and secondary education, standards for hiring, firing, evaluating, and paying educational professionals, and funding, identification, and educational service standards for special education. Could you see a judge in Massachusetts doing that to us? Oh, I would be happy. I would be amazed.
Yeah. And by the way, CJ, I was just fishing through because I think you might have 2 copies of that.
I only have 1 copy, and I know because I made sure you had yours.
Somebody must have pilfered it.
Up at the top, it has a little blue line on it. You can.
I have nothing here with a blue line.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay, not a problem. You read it. I mean, the point is well made. You read the decision, and that's it. It's like, and
you've been asking for that for ages.
I know, absolutely.
So, the other thing is, Facebook co-founder promises $20 million to defeat Donald Trump.
Wow, he's got some people scared.
Well,
he's going to join all the movie actors and all the other people that don't live in the same world we do to defeat someone but it's good. Let's get people involved.
That's right.
But we know who's got all the,
But remember,
big money.
Remember, according to lying Hillary, and I'm saying that not because I'm for or against Hillary or for or against Trump. I'm saying it because on Friday she was diagnosed with pneumonia. She told the people that, she's having allergies. She just about passes out on Sunday. And it took her almost passing out for her to finally come clean and say, I was diagnosed with pneumonia. It doesn't add anything to her credibility. I mean, she's already at her 4th strike. This is getting to be nauseating.
Well, look, we all know that this may arguably be the most historic election in the entire history of the world, because you have 2, not 1, but 2 candidates vying for office who are basically have a disapproval rating that's probably the highest in history. So it's kind of like an election that's we're choosing between bubonic plague and cholera. It's like, so the fact is that we have 2 very unpopular candidates. So
there's no question.
And it's going to be should it come to this? Well, who knows? This is what it's come to, and we have to look. That's why we actually have to look very, very closely at this election, because this election is not someone with 2 people with very, very strong histories, and fundamentally what kind of what they're going to do to a degree. They're both candidates they're flawed, like everyone is, but they're terribly flawed. And they're also both really unknown quantities. They're both wild cards. And Hillary can say she's been involved in government and stuff, but being in the Senate isn't being in government. You're like a duke. You go there, you sit down, you collect your paycheck, you go get the best health care in the world. You get your pension the first day you sit, that your butt hits the seat in the Senate or in Congress, and you live like a monarch. Do you have much to do with government? You cast a vote, and votes are done, politically. Most things don't get through, and we will be running a clip. I think at some point this week, hopefully, that from a movie that talks about there are no Shiites, there are no Sunnis, there are only the haves and the have-nots. And that's very, very true. It goes back from a movie that talks about there are no Shiites, there are no Sunnis, there are only the haves and the have-nots. And that's very, very true. It goes back from a movie that talks about there are no Shiites, there are no. Did you just do that intentionally, or?
I'm actually getting
feedback.
I'm trying to get that video a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not going to have the video, but I'm going to have the spoken word, and here it is now.
Back.
I'm trying to get that video a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not going to have the video, but I'm going to have the spoken word, and here it is now.
In any case, you might as well be on the side that gets you well paid for your job.
Work.
Live television, isn't it
It's
wonderful?
not really as bad as it seems. It's all going to be done in any case. You might as well be on the side that gets you well paid for your efforts.
And what side are you on?
There are no sides. There's no Sunnis and Shiites. There's no Democrats and Republicans. There's only haves and have-nots.
What exactly?
There you go.
There you go. And that was a movie made not that long ago. But I have one of my favorite books, The Untold Story of Labor, which has a similar quote from an actual multi-millionaire in the 1800s that said, "We don't care who's in Congress, we don't care who the president is, we don't care if they're Republican or Democrats, we own them all. We're the rich and we control this country." And the reality is that it's still the same today. And this is the thing, that this is the way it is. So they're spending $20 million to defeat Trump because they have an agenda. And obviously Trump supporters are going to spend a lot of money. But we have to look very closely at these candidates, because they can say that neither of them really have ever been in a position where they had to make the kinds of decisions that they're going to have to make as president of the United States. So you're going to have to study these candidates very, very closely. They don't have very long track records, if any track record. So I think that rather than saying, well, it's just pick the lesser of two evils, I think when you have an election like that, you actually have to look closer at the candidates, because you have to find... You got two really bad things.
Yep.
So you go, well, I'm going to pick the least bad. Is this going to cripple me? This one will cripple me, and this one will kill me. So I think I'll take the one that will cripple me.
Yep.
So, and this is what we have to do. So everybody out there, pay attention.
Yep. Well, we gotta move fast because we're running out of time, and we've got a lot to cover.
Oh.
So, $500 million. Google's getting into the pharmaceutical industry. I guess they know.
Yeah, they know where the money is.
Yep, and they're going to be backing a diabetes startup company called Verily. They're Alphabet and French drug giant Sanofi. They make insulin. So I'm wondering what this is going to be all about, but it's going to be interesting to see. And guess where they're going to? Newton.
Newton. The richest.
Well, tomorrow is the regular excrement show.
Better known as the city council.
Better known as the city council meeting. So let's get into a couple of things. Number one, pay raises. Okay. Now, Section 50 of city ordinances lists the salaries for every single city employee. Now, the argument that's coming out, and I know that there's something to this because I had city councilors telling me not to talk about this. Okay? So somebody's getting raises. And we already know that the union president for the Treasurer's Department, for the staff there, and I guess that's going to be what, AFSCME?
Yeah, ask me, yeah.
Yep. They're upset because an employee in the Treasurer's Department got a raise outside of the contract.
Well,
And the city administrator didn't answer, but the chief of staff did, who said, oh, the union signed off on it. Well, of course, the union president calls in and says, we didn't even know about it. I've got people calling me. Hey, every employee should file a grievance, and the union better represent them, and they better shove this up his backside, because guess what? He knows the labor relations law doesn't apply to him. After all, the LRB is nothing. I'm not doing anything they tell me. Quote.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, and we've got a whole litany of these things. But
Yep.
they're going to, what his defense on this, CJ, is going to be, it's not pay raises. It's
Right.
just wording. But
No,
I
it
will-
gives him latitude.
Yeah, well, I will give you a conversation I had on the way in to the show.
Yep.
With the city councilor. This is the city council's way, if they approve this stuff.
Yep.
This is the city's council way of abrogating their authority and giving it to the mayor.
That's right.
Because, you know, they're going to say, and this is their defense, and I know that the two, in his infinite, amazing grasp of how business and collective bargaining is done, has said, this stuff doesn't mean anything. It just allows me the latitude to negotiate within these parameters.
Right.
Well, that's equine excrement. Because don't you think it's interesting that everybody who has a real job in this city and has to work does just the opposite of this? Their salary is set after they negotiate, and then it's approved by the city council, and then it goes into ordinance.
Right.
They don't give me a pay raise in ordinance and then have me negotiate. I mean, the negotiation's all done. And what happens now is, once they approve all these numbers, even though everybody that's probably in here, except the senior offset duplicating machine operator, what I didn't even know those things, I thought they were in a museum of natural history or something.
Yeah, well,
because I don't think anybody uses those things anymore.
But somebody still has the job.
Well, it's kind of like looking for a Napoleon's invasion fleet over in England. That job got eliminated in the 50s, even long after Napoleon was gone.
Right.
But to get back to this, you raise DCM salary, you put this wording in, now it goes up to $98,000, this guy's getting 80. The most unqualified person ever hired, I think, in the history of the city, doesn't have an engineering degree, got a degree in art. Next time I want somebody to paint a picture, I'll go get a civil engineer.
There you go.
And the next time I need a civil engineer, I'll go get somebody that's an artist.
There you go.
And then the most he's ever made in his life was in the 40s. But once you approve these things, the mayor can start going, he'll go back
Right.
and slide him a raise. And what happens when somebody complains in the city council? Listen to me, councilors. You know what the mayor's going to say to you? Shame on you, councilors. You approved these ordinances.
Right.
You had a chance to say no. Well, why don't, here's a novel idea. Why don't you do what is done to every other city worker and most people in the real world? You go in for a job, you submit your resume, the personnel director looks, and normally on most of these applications, I haven't filled one out in a long time. I kept a job for a very long time, and I took competitive exams for my promotions. But it normally says, salary desired. They look at your credentials, they look at your degrees, they look at your experience, and you negotiate a salary. So this is what the city workers do. Firefighters go in, and even after they negotiate a salary, let me make something perfectly clear. And this is what the city council is giving up by doing this. After the firefighters and the police and AFSCME and any other union in the city negotiates a contract, a collective bargaining agreement, it has to go before the city council to be funded. If the city council doesn't fund it, there's no contract. So even after I went through sometimes almost 2 years of negotiations, or 2 years in front of the Joint Labor Management Commission, fighting with the city, and I get a finding that we should get this, I still have to sweat 3 readings in front of the city council to fund it.
Right.
Because if they don't like it, they can tell me to see you later, go back to the table. Well, guess what? We continue to hire unqualified people. The city council is giving up their ability to stop that. We're paying people too much for the jobs they do in many cases. They're not qualified and they're being paid too much. And guess what? If you did it the way it should be done, let them negotiate a contract and a salary with the mayor. Let them bring it into the council like the unions have to do for approval. And then if the city council doesn't like it, they can say, well, Mr. Mayor, guess what? We're not going to let you pay Mr. Ponciano $80,000. The guy worked as an ice house guard. He worked as a laborer. He was never in charge of more than, 6 people? And you're going to give him, and most of his career, he was making in the 30s. And now you're going to give him another pay raise over $80,000? Sorry, that contract's not going to fly. You're going to have to renew the contract to give him a pay raise. Guess what? But no, once you do this, and if you do this, it's because you don't want the responsibility and you want to duck it. But guess what? I'm saving these papers, and we're going to make a note of this meeting. And if you approve this pile of garbage, we're going to remind everybody in the city of Fall River that it's your fault when they complain about these people making way too much money.
And we already know Steve Long, Pamela Liberté-LeBeau, and Sean Kadim will probably vote for this because they don't have a backbone. But we have to hurry because we're really running out of time fast. And I have one thing left, and here it is. Screw you, taxpayer! That seems to be the regular thing. Fall River. The mayor wants to bond $2 million to build a bridge and a road for a private entity. He wants to build a bridge and a road for the Atlantis Charter School. And in return, we're going to get 10 acres of undevelopable land, because it's a swamp, for future use as a wastewater treatment plant or something. Now, here's the thing that nauseates me. The Atlantis Charter School, Robert Beatty, the executive director, Jaisal Correa, Joe Macy, and Terry Sullivan are signing the contract for it. Now, if I want to put a school in, because it's a private school, even though it's funded with city money, it's a private school. $1 million to build a road off Dickinson Street, flood control, sidewalk, and a bridge over Sucker Brook.
What an appropriate name.
Yeah, it is. It's
you
Sucker Brook, all right, because it's sucking away the tax dollars.
The suckers of the taxpayers.
That's right.
But listen, this is I think, extremely important. So I want to tell everybody we will cover this again on Wednesday.
Well, on Wednesday we'll know if they approved it.
That's right. It'll be even more fun.
Yeah, let's see if the city council has a backbone to say no, we're not going to fund that.
Let's spend $2 million on a private entity school. And guess what? Throughout the country, this is why our debate is so important. There have been a lot of problems with private entities and money and usage of money throughout this country with charter schools. Problems on both sides. Stay angry and remember, Sucker Brook.
Sucker Brook for sucker taxes. We'll see you Wednesday.